Your partner asks you to skip seeing your friends this weekend. Just this once, you agree. 3 months later, you haven't seen them at all, and you can't remember saying yes to that. But you did. Not in one conversation. In 20 micro-agreements, so small you didn't notice the pattern until your entire social circle disappeared. They didn't isolate you dramatically. They engineered 20 situations where saying yes felt easier than explaining why you wanted to say no. That's not relationship dynamics. That's behavioral architecture. And the person who knows how to build it controls your choices without you ever feeling controlled. Right now, someone in your life is running patterns on you. Maybe your boss, your partner, that friend who always gets their way. They're not more charismatic. They're not naturally persuasive. They've just figured out the 11 psychological mechanisms that bypass conscious decision-making entirely. You think you're choosing freely. You're not. You're responding to triggers installed before you could spell manipulation. Your parents ran guilt as a control mechanism. After everything I've done for you, creating debt you'll spend decades repaying. Your teachers ran shame. Everyone else understands this, installing the fear of being the problem. Your first boss ran obligation. We're a family here. Building loyalty architecture disguised as belonging. Those patterns are still executing. Someone expresses disappointment, and you scramble to fix it before evaluating whether you caused it. Someone implies you're letting them down, and you work twice as hard without asking if their expectations were reasonable. Someone suggests you're not enough, and you chase their validation without questioning why you need it. These aren't personality traits. They're installed responses. Programmed behaviors someone else is counting on to make you predictable. And once you see how the system works, you'll recognize it in every interaction. Here's what that recognition looks like. Someone asks you for something. Before they finish asking, your brain is already calculating how to say yes. Not whether to say yes. How? You're solving for their need before considering your capacity. That's not kindness. That's conditioning. Someone criticizes your choice. Your first instinct is defense, not evaluation. You're more concerned with justifying yourself to them than with whether their criticism has merit. That's not respect. That's training. Someone becomes distant, and you panic. You analyze what you did wrong. You review every interaction looking for your mistake. You reach out more, try harder, prove your value. They haven't said they're leaving, they just became less available. And you reacted exactly how they knew you would. That's not insecurity. That's architecture. The mechanisms I'm about to show you work because they're invisible. They feel like normal conversation, regular relationships, standard social interaction. But they're not. They're pressure systems designed to make your compliance feel like your choice. And the people running them don't always know they're doing it. Some learned these patterns from their own families and replicate them unconsciously. Others figured them out through trial and error, noticing what works without understanding the psychology. A few know exactly what they're doing and do it deliberately. Doesn't matter which one you're dealing with, the impact on you is identical. Your decisions aren't yours. They're responses to invisible pressure you've been trained to follow since before you could recognize what training looks like. Drop a comment right now with just the word programmed if you're ready to see the code. Some days they're perfect, affectionate, attentive, everything you needed. Other days they're cold, critical, distant, unavailable. No pattern you can predict. And that unpredictability is exactly what keeps you hooked. This is intermittent reinforcement. Same mechanism that makes slot machines addictive. Random rewards that arrive unpredictably create obsession. Your brain stays engaged longer chasing random payoffs than it would chasing guaranteed ones. When someone is consistently good to you, you relax. No anxiety about when it ends, because it doesn't end. When someone is consistently terrible, you leave. The cost is constant and clear. But when someone alternates randomly between amazing and awful, Your brain goes into overdrive trying to crack the code. What triggered the good version? What caused the bad one? Which actions unlock consistency? You analyze every interaction, desperately searching for the pattern that makes them stable. You never find it because there is no pattern. The randomness is the mechanism keeping you locked in problem-solving mode. Here's how it actually operates in your life. Your manager praises your work effusively one week. Next week, same quality output, she's critical and dismissive. You spend hours analyzing what changed. Nothing changed. She's using inconsistency to maintain control. You're trying to solve a puzzle that was designed to be unsolvable. Your partner is loving and present for 3 days straight. Fourth day, cold and withdrawn. No fight, no explanation, just sudden shift. You review everything, looking for what you did wrong. You didn't do anything wrong. They're running the slot machine pattern on you. Sometimes you win, sometimes you lose, never knowing which interaction will pay off. So you keep trying. And here's the truly dark part. They blame you for their randomness. You don't bring out my good side anymore. You're making me act this way. If you were different, I'd treat you better. Now you're not just trying to decode their pattern, you're responsible for causing it. You're failing to be good enough to unlock their consistent good treatment. But their inconsistency has nothing to do with your behavior. That's the lie that keeps you trapped. Watch how this destroys you over time. You become hypervigilant, monitoring every word, every tone, every micro-expression, trying to predict which version you'll get today. Exhausting yourself, managing their emotional weather patterns, losing yourself in the mission of making them consistent. You stop having needs because their volatility consumes all your energy. You stop setting boundaries because you're terrified that asserting yourself will trigger the bad version. You shrink into whatever shape seems to minimize their unpredictability. And you still can't make them consistent, because you were never the variable controlling their behavior. Real consistency correlates with circumstances. Bad day at work equals stressed mood. Good news equals elevated energy. Tired equals shorter patience. You can understand the pattern because circumstances explain it. Manipulative inconsistency correlates with nothing. Great mood for no reason you can identify. Terrible treatment without clear trigger. Designed to keep you guessing because guessing keeps you engaged. If you're constantly wondering which version of someone you're getting, that's not you failing to understand them. That's them keeping you off balance. Whether they know they're doing it doesn't change what you need to do about it. Stop trying to solve them. Start solving for yourself. But before you can extract yourself, you need to see how they make their inconsistency your fault. That's the next mechanism, and it's darker than the randomness itself. You remember a conversation clearly. You said X, they responded with Y. The details are vivid. They tell you confidently that conversation never happened, or happened completely differently, and their certainty makes you doubt your memory. Are they sure? They seem really sure. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I misremembered. Maybe my memory isn't as reliable as I thought. That doubt is the crack they exploit, and if they're skilled at this technique, they widen that crack until your entire sense of reality depends on checking with them. First, this is gaslighting, but not the dramatic movie version. Real gaslighting is subtle. Small contradictions delivered with absolute confidence that accumulate into total self-doubt. 3 specific methods make this work. First, denying things they said or did. You confront them about behavior. They flatly deny it occurred. I never said that. That's not how it went. You're misremembering. And they're so certain in their denial that you start questioning what you witnessed. Your brain runs this calculation. They seem really confident. I'm doubting myself. Maybe I am wrong. Confidence is persuasive. Their unwavering certainty makes your accurate memory feel like maybe you imagined it. Second, rewriting history with alternative narratives. You remember being upset about their behavior. They remember you overreacting to nothing. You remember them promising something specific. They remember you misinterpreting a casual comment. They're not just denying your version, they're replacing it with theirs. And their version always makes them reasonable and you difficult. Eventually, their version becomes more plausible simply because they maintain it without doubt, while your certainty erodes. Third, minimizing your emotional responses. You tell them you're hurt, they tell you you're too sensitive. You say their behavior was unacceptable, they say you're overreacting. You express that something matters, they trivialize it. Gradually, you learn that your feelings aren't valid data. Their assessment of your feelings becomes more authoritative than your experience of them. You stop trusting yourself and start checking. Am I being too sensitive? Am I overreacting? Am I remembering this right? Once you're checking your reality against theirs, they control your reality. Watch this pattern in action. You're hurt by something they did. You bring it up. They respond, "That's not what happened. You're being dramatic. This is exactly why I can't talk to you about anything. You twist everything." Notice what just happened. You raised a concern about their behavior. They turned it into a criticism of your communication. Now, you're defending your right to be hurt instead of them addressing what hurt you. The conversation shifted from their action to your reaction. And you don't even notice the shift because you're too busy proving you're not dramatic. That's reality editing in real time. They changed what the conversation was about, and you accepted the new frame because they delivered it with confidence. Here's another version. You say, "You agreed to call me last night and didn't." They respond, "I never agreed to that. You assumed I would and got upset when I didn't read your mind." You could swear they agreed you remember the conversation. But they're so certain you assumed wrong that you start questioning your recall. Did you assume? Did you mishear? Were you not clear? No, they agreed and didn't follow through. But they're rewriting the agreement as your assumption. And if you accept that rewrite, you'll apologize for being upset about them breaking a commitment that they're now claiming never existed. This is how people erase their accountability, by editing the record with confidence until you stop trusting your own memory of what happened. The defense is documentation. Write things down immediately after conversations happen. What was said, what was agreed to, how you felt. When they deny it later, you have an unedited record. Your past self verifies your present perception. Gaslighting only works if you doubt your memory. Written records prevent doubt. They can deny what you wrote, but they can't convince you that you wrote something you didn't write. And watch for the pattern. One person in your life makes you constantly question your memory, your perception, your feelings. That's not you having a bad memory. That's them rewriting reality to maintain control. Your perception is valid even when someone confidently denies it, especially when they confidently deny it. But reality editing is just the setup for the next mechanism. Once they've made you doubt yourself, they can install obligations you never actually agreed to. Someone asks you to help them move one box. Takes 30 seconds. You agree. 2 weeks later, they ask you to help move furniture. You hesitate. Bigger ask. You're busy. But you remember you helped before, and your brain runs a consistency check. I helped them last time. If I refuse now, that means I was only willing to help when it was easy. That makes me unreliable. So you agree. Not because you want to, because you're protecting your identity as a helpful person. Identity you didn't choose. Identity that was. Installed with one small yes 2 weeks ago. This is the compliance ladder. Each small agreement creates foundation for the next larger one. And the person running this knows exactly what they're doing. That first request isn't about what they're asking for. It's about establishing the pattern that you're someone who says yes to them. Here's the mechanism in detail. Small request creates behavioral commitment. Your brain labels you as someone who helps this person. That label becomes part of your self-concept. Future requests get filtered through that self-concept. Refusing contradicts who you've defined yourself as being. So you say yes to maintain internal consistency. But you never consciously chose that identity. It was installed through one trivial agreement you didn't think twice about. Watch how this builds over time. First, you stay 10 minutes late at work. Just this once. Project needs it. Team player behavior. 1 week later, staying late feels normal. You're now someone who stays late. Next month, working weekends doesn't seem like a big leap. You've already established you'll extend yourself for the job. 6 months later, you're working 60-hour weeks, and you can't remember saying yes to that. But you did. Through 20 small agreements that each felt reasonable in isolation, but collectively built a path, you're now trapped. Walking. Relationships run the same pattern. First, you forgive one small boundary violation. They were stressed. Doesn't seem worth fighting about. 2 weeks later, bigger violation. You remember you forgave the first one. Refusing to forgive this one seems inconsistent, so you forgive again. 4 months later, you're accepting behavior you swore you'd never tolerate, and you can't pinpoint when you became this person. Because you didn't become this person in one decision. You became this person through 20 small decisions that created trajectory you couldn't see while making them. The manipulation works because each individual step feels defensible. Stay late one night? Sure, the project needs it. Work one weekend? Okay, you're a team player. Cancel plans when they need you? Well, they do the same for you. Each decision in isolation is reasonable, but the pattern is predatory. They're not just asking for help, they're training you to prioritize their needs over your boundaries, and they're doing it incrementally so you don't notice the full scope until it's normalized. Here's how you spot compliance architecture being built around you. Track requests over time. If someone's asks are consistently getting bigger while their reciprocity stays the same or decreases, you're on a ladder. If you're doing more and more for them while they do less and less for you, the ladder is working. And once you're on it, they defend the architecture when you try to change it. You set a new boundary. Watch what happens. Suddenly you're not the person they thought you were. You're changing. You're not there for them anymore. They frame your boundary as your failure, not their exploitation. Because if you get off the ladder, they lose their leverage. And they've invested weeks or months training you to climb it. Your liberation is their loss. The way out is recognizing that past compliance doesn't obligate future compliance. Just because you helped before doesn't mean you owe help now. Past yes is not a contract for future yes. Each request is independent, deserves evaluation based on your current capacity and willingness, not your history, not your established pattern, not the identity someone else installed through manufactured behavioral commitment. Someone built a ladder under you. You don't have to keep climbing, just because you started. But even if you stop climbing, they've got backup mechanisms. The next one makes your boundaries feel like cruelty. They do things for you that you didn't ask for, help you didn't request, favors you never wanted. And each one creates a debt in your mind that they plan to collect later. This is reciprocity manipulation. Unilateral deposits followed by strategic withdrawals. They're loading your account with obligations you never agreed to, then spending that balance whenever they need. Compliance. Someone offers you help. You didn't ask, maybe didn't even need it, but they insisted, gave their time, effort, resources, framed it as generosity. Don't worry about it. Happy to help. That's what friends do. 3 weeks later, when they need something, that help gets mentioned. Not explicitly, too obvious, just casually referenced. Remember when I helped you with that thing? I'd think after everything I've done. I was there for you when you needed it. The debt they created unilaterally is now currency they're spending, and you feel obligated to pay it because reciprocity is hardwired into human social behavior. Someone does something for you, you owe return. That's the rule, except in this case, you never agreed to the transaction. They imposed it. Watch how this plays out in families especially. Parents who never asked what you needed, but gave what they decided you should have. Now every boundary you set gets countered with their sacrifices. After everything I've done for you, I gave up so much to raise you. You owe me respect. But debt requires consent. You didn't ask to be born. You didn't negotiate the terms of your childhood. They made choices for you when you couldn't consent. Those choices might have been sacrifices, but sacrifices they chose don't create obligation in the present for you to be who they want you to be. Friends do this too. The one who always pays for dinner, insisting it's no big deal. Then later, when you disagree with them or set a boundary, they bring up how generous they've been. The dinners weren't generosity. They were down payments on future compliance. Co-workers, volunteer for your project without you asking. Help with your work when you didn't request it. Then later, leverage that help into you owing them. Cover for them. Support their ideas even when you disagree. They did you favors, so now you owe. Romantic partners, grand gestures early that you didn't ask for and might not have wanted. Then later, those gestures get used as evidence that they care more, try harder, love deeper. You owe matching effort. You owe reciprocal sacrifice. You owe them the right to compromise because look how much they've invested. But unasked favors don't create real debt. They create perceived debt. And manipulators know that perceived debt is just as effective as real debt for controlling behavior. Here's the mechanism in detail. They do something generous. Your brain registers imbalance. Social exchange theory says relationships require equitable give and take. Now you're taking without giving. That feels wrong. So you look for opportunities to restore balance. Except they're controlling what restoring balance looks like. When they decide it's time to collect, they frame the debt. They determine the terms of repayment. You didn't agree to those terms, but refusing feels like rejecting their generosity, retroactively. So you pay debts you never incurred under terms you never negotiated. The way out is rejecting the frame. When someone brings up past favors you didn't request as justification for present demands, you name it explicitly. I didn't ask you to do that. You chose to. Your choice doesn't obligate my future choices. Sounds harsh. It's honest. They created a transaction you didn't consent to. They're trying to collect payment for something you didn't purchase. That's not how obligation actually works, even though it's how they're framing it. Real generosity doesn't keep score. When someone genuinely helps you, they don't catalog it for future use. They don't mention it when you disagree. They don't use it as leverage when you set boundaries. They helped because they wanted to help. That desire didn't come with invisible strings. But weaponized generosity always comes with strings. The person helping you isn't doing it for you. They're doing it to create leverage over you. And they're counting on you not recognizing the difference until you're already indebted. Track who brings up their past favors when you don't comply with present requests. That person isn't generous, they're strategic. And your job is to stop accepting their deposits so they can't make withdrawals. But guilt through manufactured debt is just one collection method. The next one makes you feel guilty for things that aren't even your responsibility. Someone is upset, you didn't cause it, but somehow you're fixing it. Someone is disappointed, you didn't create their expectations, but somehow you're managing their emotions about unmet ones. Someone is stressed, you didn't create their circumstances, but somehow you're absorbing their chaos to make their life easier. This is emotional responsibility transfer, and it's destroying you. Here's how it works. Someone has feelings about something. Instead of processing those feelings and dealing with their source, they express them to you. Not for support, for management. They're outsourcing their emotional regulation to you. And if you were trained as a child that other people's emotions are your responsibility, you accept that outsourcing automatically. Your brain runs, they're upset, I should fix it. They're stressed, I should help. They're disappointed, I should make it better. But their upset isn't yours to fix. Their stress isn't yours to absorb. Their disappointment isn't yours to resolve. Those are their feelings about their circumstances. Your job is not to manage them. Watch this pattern in real time. Your partner has a bad day at work, comes home in a terrible mood, takes it out on you, snaps over nothing, creates tense atmosphere. And instead of saying, "You're in a bad mood and that's not about me," you start trying to improve their mood. You make dinner they like, you suggest activities, you walk on eggshells trying not to make it worse. You've just accepted responsibility for their emotional state. But their bad day isn't your problem to solve. They need to process their feelings about work. That's their job, not yours. Parents run this on children constantly. "You're making me upset. Look what you've done to your mother. Can't you see you're stressing me out?" Installing the belief that the child causes and therefore must fix the parent's emotional state. That child becomes an adult who feels responsible for everyone else's feelings. Partner upset? Must be something I did. Friend disappointed? I need to make it up to them. Boss stressed? I should work harder to ease their burden. But you're not responsible for other people's emotional reactions. You're responsible for your behavior. They're responsible for how they feel about your behavior. This distinction is critical. You can behave badly and owe repair for that. If you violate your own values, if you treat someone poorly, if you break commitments, you owe acknowledgement and change. That's legitimate responsibility. But you're not responsible for their feelings about your reasonable choices. You set a boundary. They're upset about your boundary. Their upset is not your responsibility. They're feeling disappointed that you prioritized yourself. That's their feeling to manage. You say no to a request. They're hurt that you refused. Their hurt is not your problem to fix. You had legitimate reasons for declining. Their disappointment about your legitimate reasons is theirs to process. You make a choice for yourself. They're stressed about your choice because it affects them. Their stress is not your responsibility. Your choices impact them, yes, but the impact doesn't make you responsible for managing their feelings about the impact. This gets confusing because manipulators deliberately blur this line. They express their feelings about your behavior in ways that make you feel responsible for causing those feelings. You hurt me, not I felt hurt. Framing their feeling as something you did to them. You made me angry, not I felt angry. Making their emotional state your action. You're stressing me out, not I feel stressed. Positioning you as the cause of their internal state. And once they've positioned you as the cause, fixing becomes your obligation. You hurt them, so you owe repair. You made them angry, so you owe apology. You're stressing them, so you owe accommodation. But you didn't create their feelings. You took an action. They had feelings about your action. The feelings are theirs. The action might be worth examining, but their feelings about it aren't your responsibility to manage. The defense is creating clear boundaries around emotional responsibility. When someone expresses feelings, ask yourself, did I violate my own values, or am I just not meeting their expectations? Values violation requires repair. Unmet expectations require them to adjust their expectations. You're responsible for the first, not the second. Someone says, "You hurt me." You respond, "What specifically did I do that violated my values or harmed you? If I did, I'll address it. If you're hurt that I set a boundary or made a choice for myself, that's something you need to process." Sounds cold. It's clarity. And clarity protects both people. You take responsibility for actual harm. They take responsibility for their feelings about your reasonable choices. But even when you establish those boundaries, they've got ways to make you feel isolated in maintaining them. Part 7. The consensus illusion. Everyone else thinks you're wrong. No one else has a problem with this. I've talked to people, and they all agree you're overreacting. They're claiming consensus, universal agreement that you're the problem. And if everyone else agrees, maybe you are wrong. This is social proof weaponization. They don't need actual consensus. They just need you to believe consensus exists. Once you believe everyone thinks you're wrong, you'll doubt yourself even when you know you're right. Watch how this operates. You have a concern about their behavior. You bring it up. They respond. No one else has ever had a problem with this. Why are you so difficult? Translation. Your concern is abnormal. You're the outlier. The problem is your perception, not their behavior. You set a boundary. They counter. Everyone else is fine with this arrangement. You're the only one who complains. Translation. Reasonable people don't have your boundary. You're unreasonable for having it. You question their treatment of you. They tell you, I've talked to friends about this, and they all think you're too sensitive. Translation. The crowd has spoken. You're wrong by consensus, and your brain does what brains do in social species. It checks for group alignment. Am I really the only one who feels this way? Is everyone else okay with something I'm uncomfortable with? Maybe I'm too sensitive. Maybe my standards are too high. Maybe I'm the problem. That's the trap. They're not actually reporting consensus. They're creating the illusion of consensus to make you doubt yourself. Here's what's really happening. Most of the time, they haven't talked to anyone. The everyone is imaginary. The consensus is fabricated. They're borrowing credibility from phantom support. And when they have talked to people, they've presented a version of events that makes them look reasonable and you look difficult. Their friends heard, "My partner won't let me hang out with my friends." They didn't hear, "My partner asked me not to prioritize bar nights over our relationship." Completely different framing produces completely different consensus. But you don't know this. All you know is they're claiming everyone agrees with them. And social proof is powerful. We're wired to conform to group opinion. When we believe we're the outlier, we adjust our position to match the perceived majority. Manipulators weaponize this instinct. They don't need actual consensus. They just need you to believe consensus exists. This shows up everywhere. Boss tells you the whole team is on board with this new policy, when actually, the team was never consulted, just claiming team agreement to make your concerns seem like personal resistance. Partner tells you, all my friends think you're controlling, when actually they've only told their friends selective stories that paint you negatively. Manufactured consensus that makes you question whether your boundaries are reasonable. Parent tells you, everyone in the family thinks you're being selfish, when actually they're the only one with that opinion. But invoking family consensus makes you feel like you're betraying the group by maintaining your position. They're borrowing credibility from imaginary support. And it works because you can't verify it. You can't call their claimed consensus and check. So you have to choose between trusting your direct experience or trusting their report of universal disagreement with you. And when framed like that, most people choose to trust the group. Being wrong alone feels more dangerous than being wrong with others. So we defer to claimed consensus, even when it contradicts our direct experience. The defense is calling the bluff when possible. Interesting, who specifically did you talk to? What exactly did they say? Watch them scramble. Usually there is no specific who, no actual conversation, just invocation of imaginary agreement designed to isolate you. Real consensus is specific. People are named. Conversations are quoted. There's actual evidence of group opinion. Fake consensus is vague. Everyone thinks. People have said. Others agree. No names. No specifics. Just the weight of phantom agreement used to crush your dissent. And trust your direct experience over reported consensus. You were in the situation. You felt what you felt. You perceived what you perceived. Someone telling you that everyone else disagrees doesn't change what actually happened. You're not crazy for thinking differently. You're experiencing something they don't want you to trust. And claiming consensus is how they make you distrust yourself without having to actually address your concern. But even consensus illusions aren't as effective as the next pattern. This one removes your alternative viewpoints entirely. Someone wants power over you. Can't have it while you have other people to check your reality against. So they systematically remove those people. Not dramatically, that would be obvious. slowly, through concern disguised as care, criticism packaged as protection. It starts with observations. Your friends are kind of negative, don't you think? Your family doesn't really understand you. You seem different when you're around them, planting seeds that other relationships somehow compromise you. You don't take it seriously at first. They're just noticing patterns, being observant, caring about influences in your life. Seems reasonable. Then observations become concerns. I'm worried about how much time you spend with them. I don't think they're good for you. You always come back stressed after seeing them. Now, it's not just observation, it's care-based criticism. They're protecting you from bad influences, and you start questioning your other relationships. Maybe your friends are negative. Maybe your family doesn't understand you. Maybe you are different around them. You're evaluating people who've been in your life for years through the lens of someone you've known for months, and that lens is designed to make everyone else look problematic. Eventually, you start pulling back, not because you decided to, because it's easier than defending them. Every time you mention a friend, subtle comment. Every time you make family plans, disappointed reaction. So you stop mentioning them. Stop making plans. Isolate without realizing you're being isolated. And once you're isolated, control becomes automatic. No one to check your reality against. No one to point out that their behavior isn't normal. No one to remind you who you were before this relationship. They've become your only source of validation, meaning, belonging. When they're your only source, you'll do anything to maintain access. Here's the mechanism in detail. They position themselves as the person who truly understands you. Everyone else misunderstands, underestimates, undervalues you. But they see your real potential, your real worth, your real self. Sounds like deep connection. It's isolation, architecture. By positioning themselves as your only true ally, they make other relationships feel shallow by comparison. Your friends don't get you like they do. Your family doesn't support you like they do. Your colleagues don't appreciate you like they do. Gradually, those other relationships feel less valuable. You invest less in them. They naturally fade. And you attribute that fading to natural drift, not to systematic devaluation that made maintaining them feel pointless. This pattern runs in romantic relationships most obviously, but it also runs in work environments, friend groups, families. Someone positions themselves as your primary source of worth and systematically devalues everyone else. Your colleagues become competitors instead of collaborators. Your mentors become people who don't understand your unique situation. Your outside opportunities become threats to your loyalty. The mechanism is always the same. Make you choose between them and others. Frame other relationships as incompatible with this one. Position themselves as the only person who truly sees you, supports you, believes in you. Slowly remove alternative sources of validation until they're the only voice you hear. And they frame it as intimacy. Don't you want us to be close? Shouldn't we be each other's priority? Real connection means putting each other first. They're packaging isolation as love, and you accept it because questioning it means admitting you're uncomfortable with intimacy. You're not uncomfortable with intimacy, you're uncomfortable with control, and isolation is how control gets implemented. Watch for this pattern. Track whether someone consistently criticizes other people in your life. Not specific behaviors, the whole person. They always find something wrong with everyone else but themselves. That's isolation architecture being built. Track whether you've pulled back from relationships that used to matter. Not because those relationships got worse, because it became easier to avoid them than defend them. That's isolation working. Track whether your world has gotten smaller since they entered it. Fewer friends, less family contact, narrower social circle. That's not natural drift. That's systematic removal of your alternative perspectives. Your support system is your leverage. They know this. That's why they remove it first. But isolation only works if they can keep you uncertain about whether leaving is possible. The next mechanism ensures that uncertainty. You're uncertain about someone, not sure they're right for you, taking your time to evaluate. They sense uncertainty. Introduce competition. I've got other people interested. I'm not going to wait forever. Other people would appreciate this opportunity. And your brain shifts. You're no longer asking, do I want this? You're asking, can I afford to lose this? Completely different question, completely different decision. This is scarcity manipulation. Works because humans avoid loss more aggressively than pursue gain. Missing out hurts more than winning feels good. When someone frames your choice as potential loss instead of potential gain, they've hijacked your decision-making. You were evaluating whether they're good for you. They made you evaluate whether you can handle them being with someone else. Your question changed. Your brain flipped from assessment to protection mode. And once you're in protection mode, you're not thinking clearly. You're reacting to manufactured urgency designed to prevent evaluation. Watch this in job offers. Employer senses your hesitation. Suddenly, position might go to another candidate. Decision needed by Friday. Talking to other people. Creating time pressure that didn't exist before you started asking questions. The scarcity isn't real. Timeline is artificial. Competition is often exaggerated or fabricated. But it works because your brain treats threat of loss as more urgent than promise of gain. And the truly manipulative version? They create scarcity of themselves. Become less available, right? When you're evaluating whether you want them in your life. Don't return calls as quickly. Cancel plans. Seem distracted or distant. Not because they're actually busy, because pulling back makes you chase. You were on the fence. They became scarce. Your brain interpreted scarcity as value. If they're pulling away, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe they're actually valuable, and I'm risking losing something good. So you pursue. Invest more energy. Demonstrate more interest. Not because your evaluation changed, because their manufactured scarcity triggered your loss aversion. This is why players seem to win. They're not more attractive or valuable. They're better at creating scarcity. Keep options visible. Don't overinvest early. Maintain enough distance to keep you wondering if you're going to lose them. Your brain interprets that uncertainty as desire. It's not. It's anxiety being misread as attraction. The antidote is slowing down when someone creates urgency. Real opportunities. Tolerate evaluation. Legitimate people don't need to rush your decision-making with artificial scarcity. When someone pressures you to choose before you're ready, that pressure is the message. They're not confident you'll choose them after evaluation, so they're trying to get commitment before you've evaluated. Scarcity is a sales tactic. When someone uses it on you in relationships, jobs, friendships, they're selling something they know won't hold up to scrutiny. If it's actually valuable, it can wait for you to be sure. But recognizing scarcity manipulation is just one piece. You need to see how all 9 mechanisms work together to create the trap you're in. 9 patterns, 9 mechanisms running on you, every day. Intermittent reinforcement keeping you chasing consistency you'll never find. Reality editing, making you doubt your own memory. Compliance architecture, trapping you in escalating obligations. Guilt collection, making you repay debts you never incurred. Responsibility transfer, making you manage others' emotions. Consensus illusion, making you feel wrong for being right. Isolation, removing your alternative perspectives. Scarcity manipulation, forcing rushed decisions. And the last one, the pattern that makes everything else possible. They've convinced you that recognizing these patterns makes you the problem. Too sensitive, too analytical, too defensive, reading too much into things, creating drama where there is none, making innocent behavior sinister, being paranoid. That narrative is the ultimate control mechanism. If questioning manipulation means you're the manipulator, then questioning becomes impossible. You're trapped, defending them against your own perception. They maintain this by making your pattern recognition seem like your pathology. You notice they make you feel guilty? You're too sensitive. You track how their asks escalate. You're keeping score. You document their contradictions. You're being paranoid. You protect yourself from their inconsistency. You're not giving them a chance. Every legitimate defense gets reframed as your dysfunction, which means staying undefended feels like staying reasonable. That's exactly how control persists. By making detection of control seem unreasonable. But healthy people don't need these patterns. They ask directly. Accept your number. Stay consistent. Remember things accurately. Respect boundaries without guilt. Celebrate your other relationships. Give you time to evaluate. The patterns you've learned to recognize only exist in manipulative dynamics. If you're seeing them, you're not paranoid. You're accurate. So what do you do with this information? First, stop defending people who run these patterns on you. Your brain wants to rationalize. They don't mean it that way. They don't realize what they're doing. They had a hard childhood. They're stressed. They love me. Maybe all that's true. Doesn't change what's happening to you. Intent doesn't determine impact. Unconscious manipulation is still manipulation. You can have compassion for why someone operates this way and still refuse to let them operate this way. On you. Second, trust your discomfort. You feel something's wrong before you can articulate what's wrong. That feeling is data. Don't dismiss it. Don't rationalize it away. Don't let someone convince you it's your imagination. Your discomfort is pattern recognition running in background. Listen to it. Third, document everything. Conversations, agreements, contradictions. Write it down immediately. When someone denies reality later, you've got the record. When someone claims you agreed to something you didn't, you've got proof. Documentation makes gaslighting impossible and obligation traps. Visible. Fourth, refuse phantom debts. When someone brings up past favors to justify present demands, name it. You chose to do that. I didn't ask. Your choice doesn't create my obligation. Will feel harsh, will create conflict. But obligation architecture collapses when you stop accepting the premise. Fifth, fact-check claimed consensus. Who said that? What did they actually say? Watch the vagueness. People think becomes no one specific. Everyone agrees becomes actually no one does. Phantom social proof evaporates under scrutiny. Sixth, protect your other relationships. When someone criticizes everyone else in your life, that's a red flag, not an insight. They're isolating you. Maintain your connections even when it creates friction, especially when it creates friction. Your support system is your reality check. Seventh, stop trying to be consistent with past compliance. Just because you said yes before doesn't mean you owe yes now. Each request is independent. Your past accommodation doesn't obligate future accommodation. Compliance ladders only work if you keep climbing. Eighth, accept that inconsistent people won't become consistent because you cracked their code. There is no code. The inconsistency is the feature. Stop trying to solve them. Start protecting yourself from the chaos. Ninth, reject guilt for having boundaries. You're allowed to say no. You're allowed to prioritize yourself. You're allowed to have limits. If someone makes you feel guilty for reasonable self-protection, that's information about them, not evidence against you. And understand this. Walking away from these patterns might mean walking away from these people. Some will adjust when you stop participating. They'll realize old dynamics don't work anymore and choose healthier interaction. Those people were running patterns unconsciously. They're capable of change. But some won't adjust. They'll escalate, increase the guilt, the pressure, the manipulation. Because these patterns aren't accidental features of their behavior. They're core to how they operate. When you stop being controllable, you stop being useful to them. Let them go. Your peace is worth more than their approval. Your sovereignty is worth more than their acceptance. Your psychological freedom is worth more than their comfort. You've spent years being programmed, compliance trained into you before you could spell compliance. And you've defended that programming because it felt like personality, relationship, normal interaction. It's not. It's architecture. And now you see it. The patterns still exist. People will still run them. But you'll recognize them while they're happening instead of months later when you're trying to figure out how you got here. Recognition is power, not automatic protection, but the prerequisite for protection. Everything changes when you stop participating in dynamics designed to control you. Everything changes when you trust your perception over someone else's narrative. Everything changes when you protect your boundaries instead of protecting their access to you. The control ends the moment you see it clearly. Everything after that is your choice. If this resonated, if you've lived these patterns, if you're done being architecture, drop a comment that says sovereign. And if you want to keep learning how human psychology actually works, how to spot manipulation in real time, how to protect yourself without becoming paranoid, subscribe, hit the bell. Because every video on this channel is designed to show you patterns that operate beneath conscious awareness. Your decisions are yours again. Take them back.